Yes guys, you join us once again with our Karmann Ghia. This time, after getting it started, it was in the garage obviously for 10 years I think getting done. But we did go and get it started. If you've not seen that, go and check that video out. I'll put a link up here. This time we're going to do the tappets because I don't think the tappets are very good. And also we're going to swap out the old carburettor because she's not had very much luck with it. And it is cobbled together with bits of shit anyway, so yeah. Let's start off, join in, let's have some fun. Right then, we're going to start off by pulling off the rocker covers so we can get to the tappets and check them. I think they're a bit tight from what the engine sounds like when it's starting. It does sound a bit funky, so we're going to pop these off and make sure that all the tappets are just fine when it decides to let go. Got a bit of rubber getting in the way I think, so we'll push it up and out of the way. So the clip's out of the way now. We can just remove the rocker cover away from the rubber. Ah, what's that? Oh look, it's our old friend, the Vorges branded beer mats. Subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. It's super cool, it really helps the channel out. I've got over 500 subscribers now, so that's really cool. Nice one to you guys, and obviously a nice one to the new subscribers. Cheers. Now, I did actually used to work as a Volkswagen Aircooled specialist back in the day for 4 years. And a few little tips and tricks you can do for when you're doing the tappets. That one feels all right. That one feels all right. So when you're trying to do the tappets, you can actually just pin a wire onto the positive of the start motor and another wire on the actual solenoid of the starter motor as well. That way you can control your starter, you can turn your engine over without having to go up the top with a big spanner as well. So I'll just chuck this on. You flip it onto the big 13 wire, pop off your original solenoid starter wire and pop our contraption on. And that way, when you jib it, you can turn the engine over. Now to do your tappets on these, all you're going to need is a 6 thou feeler gauge, a big flat screwdriver and a 13mm nut just to release the tappet there, and then we can set them to 6 thou. So the way you do this is first you crack off your nut like that, then you get your feeler blade behind, you just wind it in until you get a little bit of resistance like that. And then you just lock it up again. And when you've tightened it down, just go through again with your feeler blade, make sure it can go through with a little bit of resistance like that. And when you're setting the tappets, you want to use your contraption to make sure that the other tappet on the same cylinder is all the way in. That way you've got perfect clearance on this one. So we'll just go through the rest of them, make sure they're all okay. That first one was a bit loose. That one feels good. No need to adjust that one. You can normally hear if they're actually any good as well, so yep, that one's lovely. That one sounds a little bit loose. Let's check that one. Yeah, it is loose. And we'll lock her back up again. There's one side done. I'll do the same for the other side, and then we'll put the rocker covers back on. Now we're just on the other side now. We'll do the final couple. Make sure they're all good. Sounds nice. Feeler blade in. And then we'll just check the final one. That sounds good as well. You can normally hear from the sound that they're all right. So yeah, that one's good. Next, we're going to clean out our rocker covers, put some nice new gaskets on, a little tiny bit of sealant, and chuck them back on. Now, quite often these rocker covers are all full of shite and sealant and bits of gunk and all that stuff, but these ones are actually pretty clean. So we'll remove the old gaskets, give them a nice swizz out with some brake cleaner, get all that old manky oil out of there, go in with a nice rag and clean up all the surfaces ready for the new gaskets. Ta-da! Beautiful. Now today we're going to be using the L-ring ones. I've had these in the past. I've used them for what, 15, 17 years, something like that. L-ring, in my opinion, are the best gasket sets you can get. Although I can't actually get in this one very easily. There we go. So we'll pop out our new gasket. We'll grab our super silicone high temp sealer, tried and tested, and you just put a nice thin bead right around the outside like that, and it stops any sort of leaks going on. Once you're happy with your silicone, smudge it down nicely. We'll pop on our new gasket, and we can go ahead and refit it back to the rocker cover. Don't forget to give your mating surface on here a nice little clean up, because it will drip oil out, and that's not what you want. And go ahead, pop our rocker cover back on, give it a little smush around just to get the gaskets sealing. There we go. And we can pop our clip back on. Yeah, you might not need to take this clip off. It's only did it because the rubber up there was fouling it a little bit. But these clips go back on, pointing downwards. If you see, they've got like a bend to them. The bend points downwards. And you pop them back into those holes. Make sure your rocker cover's nicely seated. And pop your clip back on. Easy as that. I'll just go and do the other side. They're all nice and clean. Clips on, rocker covers on, sealants on. And just go in there nicely. And click. And give it a wiggle. Looking good. Don't forget to clean up your oil if it dripped any. And that's it, rocker cover's done. They should go off overnight. I'm not going to fire it up just yet, but they'll be just fine. Let's crack on with the carburettor. Now, if you take a look at this carb, it looks pretty good, but I think it's been cobbled together out of all sorts of bits and bobs. The lady said she had maybe 2 or 3 other ones that she tried and failed, cobbled stuff together, took them apart, put them back together. So to eliminate any issues that there might be inside there, I'm going to go ahead and put on a nice shiny new one. Now this is from Volkswagen Heritage, or Heritage Parts, or whatever they're called these days. And it was rather reasonable price of around 150 quid. And it is a Solex copy. Looks pretty nice and shiny. 31 I think for a twin port 1300. So let's get this one off and get that one on. Now we'll start by removing the dizzy cap, because that'll give us loads more room. Our vacuum pipe as well, we'll just chuck that down there. It looks like somebody siliconed that, so we'll just forget about that. We'll take our air filter off next. Just one big screw and a 10 milli. There we go. I'll just get an Allen key for that as well, and we'll get rid of it all entirely. Little nut on the back. Let's not drop that anywhere. And we can remove our oil bath air filter. Next thing to do, pull off the fuel line. What we're going to do for ease of removal is probably cut the pipe, and we'll replace this pipe because it looks pretty old anyway, so we don't want any leakies. Snippy snip. And that's our fuel pipe out of the way. Oh, she really was on there. It was very stiff. Never mind. Electric's off next. You'll have one for the automatic choke and one here for the idle fuel cut-off valve. So we'll just tuck them out of the way there like that. Next will be our throttle cable. Just a little 8mm on the side there, and drop the throttle cable out of the way. We're going to need access behind here to the little 13mm nut to be able to remove it. I think that's everything off. So we will start by taking off the rear one. Now you can get little C-spanners and things that fit a lot better than this, but this short 13mm should assist us in our removal. Oh, and the sun's just come out. Lovely. So there's our front 13. Ta-da. And theory says, oh, don't forget your little throttle cable nipple, because that will fall out and you will lose it, so keep that with your nuts. And there we go, carburettor is off. Now, like I said, we're going to whip off this carburetor top and see if there's any nasties inside, see if we can find anything. Let's have a look. Don't forget to put a cloth down, because there is going to be fuel in here, so just watch what you're doing. Don't try not to throw fuel everywhere, because you don't really want that, do you? Take off a little spring, 5 small screws, and then we can deep dive inside the carburetor. There we go. So there's the top, there's your needle valve. You've got your gasket underneath that. Pull it off nicely and set it aside. And you'll have a little clip in here that holds the float bolt. And pull that out. Then you can have a look inside. You can just about see inside there. The fuel looks pretty nasty. There's some bits in the bottom of there. It's probably not very good. There's probably some block jets, blocked things inside here. So it's a good job with swapping it out. And on we go with the new carburetor. Now I'm going to double up the gaskets with this, because I'll show you in a sec. The new solenoid for the fuel cut-off, idle fuel cut-off, is very close we'll just sit it in there like that. It's very close to the dynamo, but it's not touching, so I'm happy with that. We've swapped our electrics round. We can put these two in. Obviously one goes on the choke, one goes onto the fuel shut off solenoid. As long as there's no wires touching or anything, we're all good. But that carb's on now, and we'll just tighten her down. Found a sort of shorter spanner, which works much better. Look at that. Funny what happens when you got the right tools, isn't it? An old 1960s, 70s snap-on spanner, I think, 13. So we'll just tighten them down nice and evenly. That's nice and tight. And finally, a little nip on the front. Looking good. Next thing to do, chuck on our nice electronics. You can see how close it is, but close ain't touching. And it's got a nice plastic sheath around it as well, so as long as it goes on nice. And finally, our electronic choke, that's back on. It's lovely jubbly. I think we'll chuck a new fuel pipe on it next, and then get the throttle connected as well in a bit. So I've just gone ahead and cut a nice new little length of pipe for this. We'll chuck some clips on. Feed it all the way up to here. And obviously the bottom one as well. I can just wedge that on nicely. Oh baby, that went on nice. There she is. Let's get this stuff back on. And we can go for a fire up. Now these carbs come from factory, kind of set, so you normally can just fire them up as is, and it'll run, but you're obviously always going to need to do some tuning anyway, so our little idle control, the mixture control will be down here. Our idle control's here. Let's see what happens. Don't forget to chuck on your vacuum. There is a little vacuum take-off on the side of this actually. You've just got to remove the little blanking plug and pop on your vacuum hose as well. Now if you remember, we had our contraption for starting, or turning over the motor anyway, on the starter motor. We're going to use that again so that we don't have to keep running to and from the front and the back of the car while it's trying to start. So what I've done is I've got to turn the ignition on. We'll clear down some tools. It'll take a second for the fuel to come through. So let's see what happens. Well, she's firing. That'll do for me. And that is where it ended. You saw me put the carburettor on. Obviously I fired it up. Off camera I went ahead and tried tweaking it to make it idle. It would not idle, wouldn't do anything at all. It wanted to rev, that was perfectly fine. But when you try and got it to idle, there was no control on the idle mixture screw and no control on the idle air screw as well. There was absolutely nothing. So, as you can see, I have took it apart a little bit, and I thought I'd dive in a little bit further. I did a compression test on it, and the compression tests weren't great, to be honest. It had 65 on 1, 60 on 2, 65 on 3, and 90 on number 4. So I thought I'd dive in and have a look. I did notice as well when I was doing the compression test, there was a chuffing noise from this side, which was a bit strange. So I popped the spark plugs in and out and tested it and turned it over and all that stuff. And it just wasn't great. So I thought I'd get my little bore scope deep down inside the head, and this is what I found. Now that appears to me, like I said earlier in the video, the lady actually had quite a few carburetors on this thing, trying to get it to run right over the last 10 years, and it just wasn't up for doing it. So I think what you can see on the picture is a small accelerator jet out of the carburetor, which aren't uncommon from coming loose and falling in. That's gone in. I'll circle a little point on it where it looks like it's actually nipped between the valve. I don't know if it's damaged the seat, the valve, the head. I don't know what's gone on, but unfortunately this engine is going to need to come out and be repaired, or because it's got such low compression on each of the cylinders, apparently it's had some second-hand cylinders put on it when it was rebuilt, so maybe the rings on that are a bit dodgy. But yeah, it's not looking good for this engine, to be honest. So whether we get it out and repair it, or we're swapping a full new engine, I don't know what's going to go on. I'll have to leave that up to the lady who owns this thing. I am discussing her options at the moment. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be the best video in the world, but these things do happen with classic cars. So stick around, find out, make sure you subscribe just in case this gets a new engine. That would be a cool video. Let me know what you reckon you'd do in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.